How many French fries is okay for a friend to take before you tell them to get their own?
Ooh. See, there's a lot of different nuances here.
Like the context of the situation?
Well, I'm just thinking back when you're single and like good looking girl.
Who is taking the French fries?
You can take as many French fries as you want in that era.
I took
of
a
my
lot
life.
of French fries in my day. Nobody stop me!
Now, like my wife, it's like I don't not eat zero because I just buy her the fries to begin with because I know she's gonna take them. So we just start off with the large fries.
Okay, let's say it's you and your best friend.
Okay.
That's not your wife because that's a totally different category.
Okay.
You and your best friend riding in the car. Your best friend says, "No, I don't need any fries, man." And then he starts taking your French fries. How many before you go? Like you said, you didn't want any.
It's probably about. It depends where we're at. Because I'm like, if I'm getting Five Guys where they just top the whole bag off, I'm like, take some fries. Yeah. If I got like myself like a medium fry from McDonald's, or something, or like Chick-fil-A where there's only like 6 of them in there, it's like it's minimal, like maybe 3 or 4.
Yeah.
Depends on the size of fry too,
Yeah. I think I was much more defensive about my food when I was younger. And now I'm just so used to my food getting taken from me. When I have 3 kids.
It also depends who paid. Like if he paid for my fries, then he can take a few more.
Yeah.
He still gets cut off.
He still gets cut off even though he bought them.
Yeah, because that was not the prearranged agreement. I wanted fries and he did not want fries.
You did not agree to this.
Exactly.
Did not agree to this. Okay.
Now, if he takes the accidental curly, friendship over.
Thanks for joining us on the Clarify podcast, where Kelsey and Ben answer any questions that you, the congregation, have texted in. Do you have questions? Are you confused? Let us clarify.
So this question was all the way back from January 28th. The Bible and God say that marriage is important. How can singles use this when they feel like they are better off single as long as they're surrounded by a faith community? And the second question in the same vein is some people cannot legally get married, so how can marriage play a role in their lives?
I didn't bother really digging into who can't legally get married?
I'm thinking this person is talking about people who are deemed like with some sort of disability.
Okay.
Where that's like
they legally not get
they might
married,
have
though?
like a conservatorship, and so they can't make those decisions on their own or something
true.
like that.
That's true.
Because I can't think of anyone else besides like children that can't legally get married.
Yeah,
so that was
highly
my
doubt
assumption.
that was the
that
was the thought here. Paul talks about a lot in 1 Corinthians 7, the value of singleness. Mm-hmm. So there's a huge value on singleness. Mm-hmm. My wife was active duty Air Force. She's still serving with the Guard, so she every now and again is gone for a somewhat extended period of time. She was never actually deployed, but she'd go for weeks on end. And during those weeks, I would get so much done, and it was just sometimes so nice to just be like I could just do what I wanted when I wanted. And
I can't. Oh, shit, you're not gonna have a good night.
Oh shit. We've talked through this. She already knows that.
Okay, go on. Sorry, I was just
if I wanted to be out in the garage late when I would otherwise be spending time with her, it didn't matter because she wasn't there. And that's not quite the point that Paul was going at. But
kind of. Okay,
but the point being, the principle is there of people who are married are focused on their spouses and their kids and
as they're supposed to be. Yeah.
Right. Well, they should be.
Yeah.
And people who are single don't have to worry, don't have to spend time, don't have to spend their mental energy, don't have to care about those things. And so, Paul's point is that they have more time to spend focusing on the things of God, not necessarily, welding. But
yeah, so that's my next question. Then, you're gonna read. You're probably gonna read what Paul has to say, but Paul puts value on singleness for that purpose, for serving the Lord. But what would you say to people who are like, I'm just gonna stay single because I don't want to have to deal with a spouse, or I don't want to have to be tied down or whatever.
I mean, I think that there's obviously there would be some selfishness in that, probably.
Okay.
That being said, I mean, yeah, I'm gonna go for it. That being said, I think that's a completely different story than like saying, I'm gonna get married and not have kids because I don't want to.
Okay.
If you're not even gonna start the whole thing, then I'm like, you know what? Like that, Paul says it's better to be single if you can be. Yeah. So even kind of regardless of the reason, if you're actually gonna utilize your singleness to be able to do more
serve the Lord,
whatever that might, in whatever ways that might mean, like I think that's perfectly fine. I think people who are like, I want to get married and then not have kids because I don't want to spend a lot of money on them or I don't want to put time and effort into that. I think who can have kids.
Yes, this is not a conversation about infertility whatsoever. That's a different situation.
I think that, like the selfishness that's involved in that is a whole different story because you're not even starting out with the potential. You're starting with, I don't want to be married, or I guess I can't be married, or whatever. And that's, Paul says that, like, that's a very good thing,
right?
If you utilize it well. But I kind of forgot what your original question was.
So that you were saying Paul. Did you have a scripture?
It's just like all of 1 Corinthians 7.
Okay.
It's throughout that entire passage where he's talking about the benefits of singleness.
Yeah.
So how can marriage play a part in their lives? I'm not entirely sure what that question means. I'm sure you have some thoughts.
If I was reading this question, I think this person is asking, like, okay, God says that marriage is important. Like, how does that affect me as a person who is going to be single? And I think the way that affects you is like you're put in society, you're put in a church community, and there are different kinds of people, and God calls different kinds of people to different kinds of things.
Yeah.
And so that doesn't mean like you have married friends, and if your desire is, and you don't feel like God maybe is calling you to be single.
Yeah.
And you're having a hard time finding a spouse, be in community with lots of different people at lots of different walks of life. Yeah, some people are called to be single, and that is a good thing. And just like seek God and seek what he has for you and where he puts you. Where's your mission field? Because we all are missionaries. It might not look like to foreign lands. Like sometimes it's just in your neighborhood. Or
I just realized I never really finished my whole thought.
Yeah, go back.
We're talking about Rachel being gone. So
Rachel being gone.
I do want to finish that thought. So
you
that
love
I don't
it when
get
Rachel's
in trouble.
gone.
But when she has been gone, it's usually about 4 or 5 days before I'm really like, okay, I really do like miss having her around, because those first 4 or 5 days, it's like there is like that total freedom that you just don't have in marriage. And I'm sure you have kids.
Where's
too.
Annie?
Well, she was with Rachel this last time, but there was, she's only a little over a year old, so I just threw her out in the yard,
She's tied out there to a cinder block.
No. But like, I don't know. I'm assuming that you have to. Like, there's times when you think like, man, like this moment would just be so much easier if I didn't have kids around, or if I was just by myself for a minute, kind of thing. And it's like, there's times where, like, and that's not saying like, I wish I wasn't married or I wish she didn't have kids.
Right.
Like, it's not that mentality. It's like, in this moment, this would be so much easier. Or like, it's like, it's been a rough day. I just want to be alone and I can't. Like, even little things like that, where there is something to say about being single. And that doesn't mean that we don't want to be married, that we don't want kids. That's what Paul is talking about, that you have that freedom that you don't when you're, for lack of better terms, tied down with a spouse, with kids and such. So how can they use this when they feel like they're better off single, when they're surrounded by a faith community? But the answer's in the question. If they're surrounded by a faith community and they're Paul kind of says that they are better off single in that aspect.
You have to be like, you cannot be lone wolfing it if you're single.
Right.
Like when you have a family, you shouldn't be lone wolfing it either. You should have outside mentors.
Right.
But like it's I feel like it's especially important if you're single,
right? Because
you don't have automatic people that are holding you accountable, you know.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
They're not living in your house, you know.
Right.
So, especially important there. And then, so then she goes on and says, some people can't legally get married. How can marriage play a role in their lives? And so I think we decided that this is probably talking about somebody who has some legal reason that they're unable to make that choice themselves. And I think that that's the same answer, right? Like, your circumstances are that. Like, you can't change your circumstances.
Very well put.
I like words. So you can't change your circumstances, right. But God is still sovereign over your circumstances, and He still has a plan for you. Without
twisting this and using the hyperbolic extremes, for people who God has called to get married, it is better for them to be married. For people who are single, it is better that they are single.
It is always better for you to just be in the will of God.
But I mean, even if you're not necessarily like right now, like, even if you're getting married just to get married, in the end, like, that's part of God's plan. Mm-hmm. It might be a train wreck getting there, but like God has a plan. So like if God's plan for your life is that you're married, it's better that you're married, mm-hmm. even if your marriage sucks right now. Mm-hmm. If you're single and that it's God's plan for you to be single for a time or for your whole life, it's better that you're single. Mm-hmm. So I think we live in that, and when we're so concerned with being, Ben Stewart has did a series of talks at Texas A&M. He's the pastor of Passion City Church, DC now, and he wrote a book. It's called Single, Dating, Engaged, Married, and it's pretty self-explanatory what his thought process is in the book. But he makes the point. I've never read the book, but I did listen to his talks, and he talks about that people always want to be in a different stage, no matter what stage they're in. He said people
the grass
are single,
is always greener. Yeah.
He said people are single and they want to be dating, and then they're dating, they want to be engaged, and they're engaged and they want to be married, and then they get married and realize, I no longer have the freedom. I no longer can do whatever I want. I can no longer just go and buy this thing. It's always that the grass is always greener, and so if people are looking at it that way, like you're already looking at it wrong. If you're so caught up in I want to be married and I'm single and woe is me and boo hoo, and like that's not a good place to be. If you're married and you're like, well, I can't serve God because I'm not single. Well, that's wrong too. Mm-hmm. And wherever you're at in that whole mix, you have to accept that God has a plan, and that wherever you're at in this stage in your life, assuming that you're trying to fulfill God's plan in your life, that is the place to be. Take advantage of that place. If you're single, take advantage of all the extra time you have. If you're married, take advantage of all the whatever, I don't even know. My thoughts kind of escape me. Well, being
married, like, you're like, if you're married, you can't serve God. I think that we need to think about things seasonally too, like married with kids. Like, that just looks different.
Yeah.
If you have kids, serving looks different than it might if you are single. And your primary service to the Lord is raising up your children to be followers of Him.
Right.
A thought came to me when I was looking at this question today about how, like, our modern idea of being retired and like, you retire from a job and then you like buy a sailboat and float away or whatever, and you spend all this leisure time. Yeah, exactly, Jimmy Buffett. But that's not biblical.
Margaritaville?
No, the whole idea of retirement like that. Like, you should be retiring from a job to something. Like, God has called you to service for Him for all of your life, Yeah. And it's kind of the same idea with singleness. Like, just because you're not in the stage that you thought you might be in, like, what are you single for? Like, that should be a question that you bring to the feet of Jesus. Like, what do you want me to do with this that you have given me now? Yeah.
Yeah, and it does look different at every stage, but the important part is, like, are you doing what you can to serve God? I mean, you're in your 20s and you're putting hours in, at least some weeks, depending on what our topics are, to recording this podcast. And you've got someone like Dave Wilson, who's retired and spending hours upon hours here at the church every week, and is just a incredibly faithful servant.
Yeah, I don't know what would go on here if he wasn't here.
But like, even if that like opportunity was there, you can't serve in the same way that Dave Wilson can, because
I don't have the capacity.
Exactly.
My 3 kids are over there wreaking havoc on my grandma right now.
So there's all that stuff at play, but whatever God has called you to, that's the best. And not even just with marriage, whatever we're talking about. I never thought I'd be in the state of Wisconsin. I never thought that I would be married to someone who was in the Air Force and take me to the state of Washington. And there's been so much stuff in my life that I'm like, that was never part of the plan.
Not in the plan,
That
God.
was not even that it wasn't in the plan. Like, that was anti-Ben's plan. Like, it, like how God always works.
Yeah, right.
But like, if I sit here and like, well, that wasn't my plan, so it's not as good. It's not what I wanted. No, it is so much better than anything I had in mind. Being here is so much better than what I had in mind 5 years ago or 10 years ago. And so we have to live in that God has something way better for us. And that doesn't mean that you're not in a hard stage right now.
Yeah, that's true.
I've been in those hard stages. Again, moving through the military, it's not easy as a military spouse who's not a woman, especially. Like, there's a whole different thing going on there. There were some times that just really sucked. But now that I'm on the other side of it, I see how all that stuff came to be a part of who I am today, what I'm doing today, being here at Lakeview, and just the role I have in my personal life. And it's all come together in a beautiful way that I never would have been able to imagine even just months ago. So you might be in a terrible spot right now, or maybe even objectively terrible. Like, it's just not good. Like, your marriage is terrible. You're just feeling really lonely. I don't know.
That's
God's at work even when we don't see it.
And like, a marriage is not going to solve your problems.
Oh,
either.
yeah.
It's
all
not
kinds of
going to
new
solve your
problems.
problems. Like, if you think, well, it'll just be better for me if I can just get married and then we don't have to worry about this. Like, that's not the case. So me getting married didn't take away my sin out of my heart. You know, like, it just looked differently inside my marriage than outside of my marriage. So, yeah. Well, that being said, let's not call our pets our kids.
Love it. Yes.
I love animals. I would have all of the animals in my house. My husband keeps kicking them out of my house, but I love animals, but they are not my kids.
I love that you opened up that can of worms.
If you have, and your desire is you want kids and it's just not happening and God just doesn't have it for you right now, don't get a cat and put it in a carrier and call it your cat baby. Go volunteer at your church nursery. Get a background check and love on those children, and they will call you auntie someday when you're spent however many years with them. That's it. That's all I got. No, that's all I got.
All right, we're calling good there. That's another episode in the books. So we'll catch you next week.